Hope everyone's having a great day. I'm Jeffrey, and I'd like to do a video today on my new Power to Fly Fenix XC Lite with the Cosmos 300 engine on it. Let's show you what some of the tools we're going to need to put this thing together. We're going to need a 4, a 5, and a 6 millimeter Allen wrench. We also have some wrenches here, 8, 10, 13, and 17 millimeter wrenches. And we're also going to use a 17 millimeter socket as well. We're going to use some silicone lubricant to put on the axles, and we're also going to use a medium Loctite to put on some of the bolts and nuts. Over here you see the hardware package that comes with our Fenix. You'll notice that we have 6 bolts that are all the same size. We have 2 really small, short ones there, 2 medium-sized ones. 2 skinny bolts right there. These are going to go in the axles to hold them to the chassis. These are our line guides. We'll show you how to bolt those onto the cage. And then we have 6 in total of the quick connects, and then we're going to use all of these for the cage. In a separate bag you'll find 3 bolts. These are for the gas tank, and it's really important to note that there are 2 that are shorter and 1 that's longer. And so you want to make sure that you get the right bolt for the right spot there, because we don't want to run the long bolt all the way through and tear our gas tank up. And we also got some spare nuts, spare washers that came that we don't have a need for today. All right, we're going to get Jacob started on this front end. I'm going to be doing some filming, and he's going to be doing the assembling. We've got some silicone spray there that he's going to shoot down in the axle tube. There's bearings down in that front. And we don't want to put grease on there that's going to attract dirt and grime, but we want to put something there so it's not dry. Another point I want to make is that the entire front end on this came with all the nuts and bolts installed in the front end. So you don't have to worry about hunting the hardware about which screw goes where. It's already back in this factory hole that it needs to be put together with. And so that makes this process a lot easier. We've got the spine of the trike lifted up off the floor. It's actually sitting on the engine crate, and that's going to help us access everything. 17. He's got a 17 millimeter socket, 17 millimeter wrench, and we're going to tighten this main bolt and nut that runs right through the front end. Now this front end will only go on one way. If you're sitting on the trike, the brakes should be on your left foot. And so you notice there you've got your brakes, your brake cable, and also your brake caliper there. And that's going to be on the left side. So we can't put this thing on backwards. It's only going to go on one way. So once we get that front end bolted on, the fender is going to be the next step in the process. He's got some hardware there that we've already pulled out. There's hardware already installed there under the front forks, and I believe there's a rubber washer there. And so make note of how that should go together. And
this is going to come off and go on top.
Right, we're going to put that rubber washer on the top of the fender. That isolates it from the metal. The bolt's going to go underneath. Yep, there you go. And I believe the way the fender is laid out is also pretty evident how it's going to go on. But the fender's got a bunch of contour and shape there on the front, and that's going to go towards the front of the trike. So he's going to get that in. I believe he's using an Allen wrench there. 4 millimeter, I believe. And it's just that one bolt that's going to hold that there. And then we're going to have a couple of more bolts. 2. That's going to come right here in the side of that fender. And there'll be a spacer there. Yep, you'll see that spacer. And so obviously if you see the gap between the frame and the fender, and that should be pretty self-explanatory. I'm going to run the bolt through with a washer, then a spacer goes through the fender.
Hold on. And we'll get it started.
There's a nut on the back side. And then we'll just repeat the process on the other side. And we're back. The fender has been installed. All the bolts are tightened down, and our next step is for the front tire and the axle. And obviously here we've got a brake rotor, and so we know that the brake rotor has got to go on the left-hand side where the brake caliper is at. We're going to have Jacob spray a little bit of silicone spray on the axle tube. He's already sprayed some down into the rim itself. He's going to push that axle through. There is a spacer that goes there, and he's installed that spacer, and he's going to slide it up in here. Let's see if I can kind of help hold. Sometimes it takes more than 2 hands to get the job done.
Note this, that the big spacer on the big side goes on the not the brake side.
Right. So there's a direction that axle needs to go. Nope.
So then the spacer will go on the brake side.
There we go.
Alright. And if he holds. I'm going to put a little bit of blue Loctite on my screw.
Yep.
Start on this side. Lined up.
Using a little bit of medium strength Loctite, not the permanent Loctite, and because there is no nut on the other side, we're basically threading metal into metal, and so we want to put a little bit of Loctite on there to keep that bolt from backing out. Definitely hate for the front wheel to fall off while we're taxiing.
Yep. Not like that. And this is going to be a little bit hectic to get in and out.
Yeah, sometimes putting this thing on, having to line it up just so perfect, it can helps to have an extra set of hands, but looks like Jacob's got it. So we'll tighten this side down. We'll move on to the next side.
Yep. On the other side.
We're going to do the same thing over here. A little blue Loctite on the bolt. All right, we got the front wheel on. We've got both of the Allen bolts tightened down with a 5mm Allen wrench. The next step we're going to do is put on the passenger foot pegs. The bolts for this already come pre-installed in the front end forks themselves. And so Jacob's pulling those bolts out. We're going to put Loctite on them. 5mm Allen wrench is going to put them on. I want to get Jacob to set this up here so you can see. This thing will actually bolt on backwards. If you notice how high this is up, this is not the correct way. Flip that over and put it on the correct way. The correct way is to put it on here. So your foot peg is down low and out towards the front. And so that's going to be where the front passenger puts his foot at. So I'm going to let Jacob go ahead and install that one. He's going to put some Loctite on both bolts, and we'll thread it in, and we'll install the left hand side as well, and then we'll be right back with you for the next step.
This right here.
All right, we're back. We've got both of the passenger foot pegs on, and I got those installed correctly. Got everything tight. If you'll notice here on the end, this is going to be the bar for the pilot's feet, and there's a big 17mm bolt that comes there in the end, and Jacob's putting Loctite on that now, and it comes with these foot pegs. And so the foot peg, right, that's for your feet on the front. If you were getting this trike and did not get the optional heel hoops like I purchased, then your foot would rest on this, and then there'll be just a brake pedal at the top to mash. But as you'll see in a second, we've got the optional heel hoops, and this is a system that Power to Fly installs on their bigger trikes, and I ordered this as an option to install on my XC Lite. So Jacob's taking the 17mm socket. He's got an extension to fit down in there, and so now he has got both right and left foot pegs for the pilot install. The next step is going to be the actual heel hoops and pedal assembly. And it looks like he's got the one for the right hand side ready to go on. The part right there where he just showed you at the bottom is actually the heel hoop. That's where the heel of your foot is going to sit, and that way your feet can't slide off. And we'll
put everything, all the Allen key heads on the inside.
Okay. So the bolts are already there in the front end, so you don't have to guess which bolt to use. He pulled the bolt out for where it was factory installed, installed the pedal with heel hoop assembly, and he's going to tighten that bolt down.
Before we do that though, we're going to go ahead and hook this right here. And this is an optional foot throttle, is what this is.
Correct. This would be if you'd like to install an optional foot throttle. We're not going to be doing that, at least not right off the bat. Might be something I'll look at in the future. But right now what we're going to do is just screw this down and lock down the right side pedal, and that way it's not going to pivot or move. And of course the left side pedal is going to be your brakes.
This is a 10 for the main one,
10 millimeter
and a
wrench,
5 millimeter Allen, and the optional throttle is going to be a 4 millimeter Allen and an 8 millimeter
wrench.
Wrench nut. Get that tight. I'll max it all the way out. Get a nice snug tightening.
Lock it down. Yep, that's going to be super comfy to prop your feet up on and let your heels rest there at the bottom. And I like that a lot better. That way I ain't got to keep tension on my feet. They can just kind of hang out and rest nice and easy. And so if you're looking at an XC Lite, that's an option that you can speak with your dealer about and possibly order. The brakes were already pre-installed, the cable there and everything, and so I don't think we're going to have any need for any adjustment or anything special there. We'll finish tidying this up and we'll be right back with the next step. All right, we're back and we have a completed front end. You're going to notice our passenger foot pegs. You'll notice our brakes, our brake pedal, our fender, everything's installed there. Looking great. Our second step here we're going to move on to are the rear axles and rear tires. As you can see, Jacob has one of the rear axles there. One thing that I noted on the rear axle, there is an Allen head, and if you roll that axle over, you'll see there's a nut on the bottom. The nuts should face the ground. We want to see this Allen head up towards the top. That orientates the angle for the wheels in the correct. And I also noticed here, if you look on the end of the axle shaft, this thing has a reduced diameter. You know, it's tough to see there in the picture, but there is a notch there on the axle. And so this axle can only slide in so far into the main chassis. And the factory holes that they have drilled through this axle, right, didn't align on the other side. So if you did try to take this axle and install it on the other side, the hole's not going to line up. So this is the way this one goes on. Jacob's going to put a little silicone spray that just helps this axle slide in to the main chassis a little bit easier. He's going to twist it in there. And earlier I showed you this is a really thin screw. It's the thinnest screw that comes in the hardware package. It's also pretty long. It's already got a washer and a nylon locking nut there, and so he's going to slide that screw. I'm going to install it the same way with the Allen head to the top. I'm going to install the nut on the bottom facing more towards the ground, and he's going to have to twist that. There you go. Line that hole up, push the screw through, and he'll tighten that up. We're going to repeat that process on the right hand side as well after he tightens this up. And we're using a 5mm Allen head and a 10mm wrench on the nut. Just a quick note, the Colibri trike that we have from Power to Fly uses a similar axle design. Of course, it's not as thick, and it actually uses pins, and I don't see why a pin wouldn't work here as well. If you like to take the axles off, and for transportation, might be a little quicker. Here I'm going to install these wheels. He's already put a little silicone spray on the axle, and I want to make a note that we're installing these wheels, if you'll stop spinning it there, with the valve stem to the outside. So if you want to put air in these things, we're going to be consistent here and put that valve stem there on the outside so we can add air.
They also are directional.
Correct. These wheels are also directional. It'll give you an arrow on the side. It tells you they're pointing in the right direction. There's
the washer is beveled.
Right, it's a beveled washer.
The bevel goes on towards the
inside, so it doesn't bind up on the bearing there. Right. And he's going to install the 13mm lock nut, and I didn't show this tool earlier, but we're also going to use a 13mm socket instead of a wrench, just to kind of speed this process up. We're going to tighten this thing down. That is a nylon lock nut, and so there's no need for any kind of Loctite on this. And we're going to tighten it down, make sure that it's not binding. We're still free spinning, and let him get that nice and tight. Still have plenty of motion. So make sure that you install that washer in the correct direction. I think if you flip it over and tighten it down too tight, it's going to bind the wheel up and not spin as freely.
That's right.
All right. That was easy, and we're going to repeat this exact same process on the right hand side, and we'll be back for more. All right, we're back. We've got both of the rear axles installed, so now we have a completed rolling chassis. Jacob was checking out the suspension back there on those aluminum axles. Our next step is going to be to install this backbone, spine, engine mount, and this thing already came with the nuts and bolts in the top there. You can jiggle those around. And those are different size bolts. Those are going to hold the engine on, and so they were already pre-installed from the factory. You'll notice the fuel bulb and also the on-off ignition. Everything there was already pre-installed from the factory. So we're going to install this, and Jacob's going to show you there. The ignition box should go towards the rear, and the screws there, that's the 2 screws out of the whole hardware kit that were a little bit shorter than everything else, and he's going to install that with a washer and a nylon lock nut. We're going to do that on both sides, and we'll tighten those down.
You note the tolerances on this stuff is very tight.
Yes, everything is tight, and everything fits together really nicely. No need for a hammer, but you may have to push into place. Now, the 6 bolts that we had, 2 of them are going in right here, and we're going to catch a washer and a nut on the other side. Jacob is actually crisscrossing these screws, so you're going to have a nut on one side and a head of the other. Okay, we're using a 6mm Allen wrench and a 13mm wrench for the nut. Same all the way around. Our next step is going to be to get the upper bars installed, and that is going to tie us in up here at this top bar, and also tie us down here. If you'll notice, there's some holes there, right there at the neck, and we're going to be using those other 4 bolts that I told you there were 6 of them. They were all the same length. Going back to our hardware, there's the 4 bolts right here that we're going to be using to hold the upper in place. The 2 shorter bolts that you see right there are catching these tabs. Well, that's a close-up right there. So there's 2 tabs on the side, and that's all going to line up and use the 2 shorter bolts. And so we'll be installing that next, and we'll be right back as soon as he tightens all of this up. All right, we're back. We're going to take this and we're going to install it on to this upper cage section. We're going to line it up right here at the front. I'm going to help.
Right there.
Yep. Can you catch a bolt right there?
Yep.
We're going to catch a bolt up here in the front.
Right there. There you go.
2 of our bolts, a washer and a nylon lock nut are going to be installed up here at the front. As soon as he gets those, and we have 2 more back here at the back. They'll be run through here on the sides. It ties into the spine, and then the little short screws we have, these tabs are going to line up. We're going to install that. Keep in mind that these bars, right, is where everything ties in. Our carabiners for our wing, everything to hold our harnesses is in place. We also have our A-assist lines already tied in up here to our roll cage. This is the buckles for our harness as well. I'm going to call these the old crap handles. I don't know exactly if that's for a front passenger or for the rear pilot, but we've got these 2 handles here on both sides of the cage, and of course we've got these collars and everything up here at the front to hold the front harness in. So it looks like Jacob has got the bolts installed up here on the front, and that's holding our front bars in.
Yep.
And so I'm going to show you a close-up picture here as soon as he gets this bolt going. These are these really short bolts. When this cage is installed correctly, the cage tab is going to sit in front. Okay, the spine tab is going to be on the back side, and when you install it correctly, then our holes here in the middle, right, are going to line right up. Everything goes together. So the fit and finish is really nice, really nice. We'll get these bolts installed there, get everything tightened down, no need for any Loctite. Everything has nylon lock nuts in place, and we're going to be using, I believe, a 6mm and a 13mm wrench to tighten everything down. And that will have our cage bars, our upper bars, bolted to the chassis. And it's starting to look like a trike. We'll be right back for the next step in the process. All right, we've got this thing in the rolling chassis. We've got the upper bars installed. The next step is going to be installing the cage. Jacob has got this center section for the cage hoop there, and he's going to pick that up, and you're going to notice, right, there's 2 pegs right here on the top of the upper bars. It's going to slide right on, that piece of cake. And you'll see my little hoop right there. That's going to be for the pull start for the engine. And you notice up here that the cage obviously is angling towards the rear, right? So you want to put this thing on in the correct direction. And we've got some quick connects, almost like you'd put a, I don't know, a 10-speed or mountain bike front tire on. But they've got a nut on them, and we're going to slide these through. We're going to use, we actually had 2 chrome ones, and 4 black ones. And we ordered our trike in a custom painted orange with a black center section here. And so we're going to install these chrome ones here on the top. Jacob's going to push them through and tighten this nut down. Now you want to open that front lever all the way out like that and get it completely tightened down. Once you get some tension on this, then we're going to flip the lever, and that's going to hold everything in place, just like that. Perfect. He's got that one done. He's going to move on over here to the next one after he throws everything on the ground.
Rubber.
Right, you got rubber washers on there so we don't scuff the finish.
Yep, rubber goes towards the...
right, towards the painted surface.
Yep.
Install the rubber washer on the back.
Yep. And then the drop nut.
Yep. Keep that lever open. Run that nut all the way down. And get it tight. Flip it.
Zip tie.
Yep. In the past, I've used these things before on the Power to Fly Colibri trike, and I actually took and used zip ties, right? Because right, we got tension on here, and so when we get it tight here, once we get this tight, this should have some tension to it. So when I flip this lever to hold this thing tight, I don't want this lever to vibrate and come back loose. And so we've taken zip ties, run them through here, run them around the cage, and zip tie that down. That way this thing can't vibrate loose and pop back out. Now the chances of that happening are still pretty slim. I'm just taking one extra step to ensure that that doesn't happen. And right, so we've got the right hand side of the cage piece there, and it's going to slide in right here to the spine. And if you notice, it actually has a stop built into it, which is pretty neat. And you're going to have to use a little bit of muscle and flex that piece. Perfect. Slides right on. And then we're going to do the same thing. He's got a couple of the black quick connects there. And we're going to run those pieces down in them and get those tightened up. Then we're going to repeat the same process on the left-hand side of the trike. While he's doing that, I'll kind of give you a little overview. We went with a polished stainless steel frame. Everything that you see on the trike that is polished is stainless steel, and that was important to me. People say stainless is a little heavier than aluminum, which is fine, but I wanted something really for the strength, and so I went with all stainless steel, polished here. Everything that you see that's painted orange in the hoop, I believe all of that is aluminum, if I'm not mistaken. And they go through a paint process with that, and you check with your dealer or Power to Fly, and I know that they offer different color options with that as well. The axles back here at the back are solid aluminum bar, and it's a pretty heavy axle, but the aluminum bar actually gives it a little bit of a spring, and so that's where some of your suspension action comes in on that. I've got these same type of axles on the Colibri trike, and they work fantastic. Give you a lot of confidence when you sit down on the trike. Everything's coming right along as soon as he gets this other cage section installed.
Yep. Well, come here real quick and I'll show you this. Black ones are different lengths than the chrome ones.
You've messed up already.
The chrome ones actually go
through the chrome tube.
This is a bigger tubing than this
Up at the top.
The bottom of the right cage. Yep.
You're a genius, Mr. Grinch.
So
all right,
take these back.
Take them back out. So let him get those driven in there and tighten everything down, and we'll come back to installing the hoop and the net as soon as he finishes with that. All right, we're back. We've got the cage pieces installed, and Jacob is fun to install the netting in the top portion of the hoop. So if you notice here that this netting is going to go up in front. Okay, make sure when you install it the netting goes up in front up here, and all these pieces are going to push in there, I find it helpful if you grab the two pieces here and squeeze, and that seems to work better. You line those up, squeeze them there. Now this is a feature that I like. It's pretty neat. You watch him, he clips those things together. And I know some people use Velcro straps, you know, and I'm sure that gets the job done. Sometimes, you know, if you have to worry about losing the strap, these pieces stay on the cage and snap right into place, and really seem to work super nice. I think that's a really neat way of doing it. Jacob's going to flip those over. Going to catch them there and there. Yeah, perfect. So now that we've got them in place, there's going to be two. There'll be two more up here, a couple more here, and then of course right down here on the sides. And so that catches everything there. I'm looking at it from the back side, and that's got us all there. Jacob's holding in his hand the line guides, and those are like two fiberglass rods. They've got a part threaded into it there at the end, and when you get over here to the side of the cage, you'll notice there's a hole right here. That screw comes up through the middle, and you can thread those line guides on. And before you twist it here, this thing is chamfered. It's got a rounded edge, so it fits flush up against the round tubing. So put that in a position there, and then tighten your Allen head from the bottom. Is that a 4mm?
Yes, sir.
4mm Allen wrench, and that's going to get those line guides put into place. Tighten those down. Front side view. Now, once we got our hoop there on, Jacob's going to show you how this strap system works. You're going to take and pull this strap, and we're going to wrap it around the bottom of the cage. These buckles, all right, are already pre-installed from Power to Fly. You're going to slide that through there in that buckle and pull it tight. And we're going to work our way over here to the other side and pull tension on this as well. Once it gets that buckle up, and pull tension on it, and that way we're going to have tension on our net system here as well. Great. All right, cage is installed.
Next up is gas tank.
We're going to install the gas tank next. There's 3 bolts that come in a separate bag all by themselves, and really important thing that you look that those 3 bolts, there are 2 of them one size, and one of them is a little longer than the other 2. Yep. If you look here on the back side of the gas tank, that long bolt is going to go in this bottom. So when you put it up here on the frame,
around the back,
it just slides right into place, sits on the main chassis. Jacob's going to get his Allen wrench and carefully thread these things into the gas tank. The gas tank has some brass threads already made into the tank. And do you want to put any Loctite on that?
yes.
Probably wouldn't hurt to put some Loctite. We definitely don't want that vibrating loose, and there's no nut on the back side. So we're going to put a little bit of blue Loctite on these bolts. Make sure that you identify the long screw, because it's going to go in the bottom. Yeah, you might have to move your hand there. Yep, obviously you can see one screw is considerably longer than the other one. And you'll notice that long screw is going to go here in the bottom hole, and then we have 2 holes up here to line up. Are going to be installing our harnesses, and we'll show you the difference between the pilot and the passenger harness, and show you where everything hooks up into that, and we'll be right back in a flash. All right guys, we're back. We've got this entire trike put together. two things left. It's going to be the harnesses. But right here, we've got the pilot's harness. You're going to be able to differentiate between the pilot harness and the passenger harness. The pilot harness has a huge container underneath the bottom where it zips over there, and it's also got some side zip pockets on it as well. And so you've got a lot of storage in this harness. And so Jacob's going to go ahead and hang it. You'll see there at the very back, we've got a couple of straps here that come pre-installed from Power to Fly, and Jacob's going to show you how to install and hook this in. Make sure that they're installed all the way. The little red dot on the buckle, you're going to have to press that in, hook it, press it in, hook it, and then it locks it into place.
Yep.
Now, do realize all these straps are adjustable as far as height. You can pull these and adjust them to where it's going to be comfortable for you. And I know one of my biggest things when I was researching trikes, a lot of these companies, the trikes, we have this roll bar. I bought this trike because I needed A-assist, and we're going to have our A-assist lines, and that's going to tie into our wing and help that pull the wing up for us. And my biggest concern was when I'm sitting in the pilot seat, I don't want my eyes, to line up with this bar and be right in my way, and just kind of hurt my visibility. And the nice thing with this harness setup is that you can adjust the height. And so if you're a shorter or taller guy, you can put that harness where you want it, and so you're not having visibility issues with any of these bars. We've got carabiners here on the side of the harness, and this is going to clip into the straps that come already pre-hung. You'll notice here the carabiners there, that's going to be our connection for our wings. These collars up here use Allen screws, so we can slide these collars back and forth, and we'll be doing a hang test later to figure out where we need to hang our carabiners. There's another set of collars here as well, and I'll probably be getting another set of straps and a second set of carabiners, and so we can hang this and fly it, whether we're flying solo or tandem. We can have two sets of carabiners to fit either way. We come down here to the bottom. This thing has some crazy strong Velcro that wraps around the main chassis bar at the bottom, and it ties in, and man, that thing is a booger to separate that Velcro. But we got that pulled apart, got it wrapped around the chassis and Velcro back together. And of course we have our two straps in the back, our carabiners here at the front. Just to give you a little close up, this thing has a lot of padding, and it might be hard to see in the video, but this thing has tons of padding. I think it's going to be super comfortable, and Jacob's going to show you the latch system there in the middle, and shoulder harnesses. Yeah, really impressed with these harnesses. I think it's going to be super comfortable for long flights. Boom. All right, that is the pilot harness. Jacob's going to grab the passenger harness. You're going to identify this one two ways. At the bottom, you're going to see there's not as much length there on the Velcro for the spine, because it's obviously a much shorter spine for it to attach to. But you'll also notice on the back there is a pouch there. So when you're in the pilot seat in the rear, you'll actually have access to that pouch there in the rear of the passenger harness. So Jacob's going to grab these, same clip system, and clip those in, mash the red button. Also, let's make sure these don't get twisted when you install them. And if you notice, like we said earlier, these two straps that are hanging here are A-assist for our wings. They're not going to be used anything for the harness setup. Jacob's clipping in the carabiners there. We talked about our handles here. Work out really nice. And obviously there's going to be some adjustability here on the back side of these harnesses there, so we can get the tension just right there. Down here at the bottom, there are some Velcro straps that wrap around the front bar. Right? He's going to pull that seat pan up, wrap that around, tuck it back in.
Make sure you don't lose your.
I think he might have got ahead of himself. Yep. And that strap's going to need to be there to buckle in. That works great. On the sides over here, you're going to have some straps that come back around and tie in, and you kind of thread those through like you would a belt buckle, and you'll have a little bit of adjustment there. Let's not get them too tight, but we do want to put some tension on them. And I believe he's going to run this strap. It's going to tie into the buckles there on the rear pilot seat. I'm going to repeat the process here on the other side. Yep. And that should take care of the pilot harness. I mean the passenger harness, excuse me. Obviously, I want to make it really clear that I am in no way affiliated with Power to Fly or representing them in any fashion. I'm just giving you the process that we went through to assemble the trike. If there's anything that I missed, I apologize. If there's anything I got wrong, I apologize. Please, down in the comment section of the video, share any kind of comments, cares, concerns there, and we'll make sure that we'll update anything as we go along with the trike and in future videos. But it looks like we're bringing this to a close. I sure would love to thank Miguel and all the guys at Power to Fly in Portugal, and I'd also like to thank, let me see that hat, Darren and Alan at Carolina, hold still, Carolina PPG. They're based out of North Carolina, and those guys are great, and they have helped us out a ton, and got this beautiful trike in our hands in a really short time, and we're so excited to get this thing finished up and get in the air. All right, Jacob, you did a fantastic job, young man.
There you go.
Man, that's looking great. All right, stay tuned. There'll be a part 2. We'll get this engine installed, and we're going to do some hang tests. We're also going to do obviously some taxiing around, break this engine in on this beautiful, this thing is it's a work of art, and it's beautiful Cosmos 300.
Yep.
I'm super excited about this. We've got a 3-bladed prop over there, the prop covers. We've got the air box. I believe I went with a Polini hand throttle here, and we also have our radiator there, and we'll have to install it. A lot of accessories that go along with this. There's obviously gear oil, there's antifreeze, we have a lithium battery, a charger, some more fuel lines, spark plugs, everything's here. And so that'll be part 2. Check us out in that video, and I think we're going to leave you with Jacob strapping in for his first imaginary flight, and I would say make some airplane sounds, but it's not an airplane. Make some 2-stroke sounds. Can you do some 2-stroke sounds for us? Ring. Hey, thanks for watching, and why don't you subscribe and like the video? We'd appreciate it, and come back for more, and we look forward to it. Thanks, and have a blessed day.